There is a lot of well-deserved praise going around for Sean Strickland today. In fact, I think it's taking the MMA world a bit of time to really get behind the idea that this win was actually more about what Strickland was doing and less about Israel being off. Sure, there's a middle ground there between the two, but Strickland stepped up and defied the odds in a way that barely made sense while watching it live. His pressure, his defense, the moments he chose to spring out of his shell and attack, the fight IQ he showed, and the dedication he displayed to his game plan, where absolutely nothing was ever going to deter him from fighting the way he wanted to fight, save for those final 20 seconds where he came out and let Israel know exactly how he felt by roaring in his face. This was a total masterpiece, and in my opinion, it was an upset or a shock that goes way beyond the other candidates in the all-time upset conversation. And trust me, it's not hard to see why. So what are the great upsets that usually get thrown around in these type of conversations? Michael Bisping versus Luke Rockhold, Matt Serra versus George St. Pierre, Holly Holm versus Rousey, even to a lesser degree Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor or Chris Weidman versus Anderson Silva, although they're not necessarily on the same level. Pena versus Nunes, Grasso versus Shevchenko, Cejudo versus DJ, Dillashaw versus Barao. You could continue naming out these fights, but to be honest, I think Strickland versus Adesanya was a bigger shock in its nature than any of them. Sure, it didn't have that one sequence of pure chaos like Serra GSP or Bisping Rockhold, where the contender seizes momentum away from the champion and gets the job done in emphatic fashion, but that's kind of my point. Strickland didn't find the finish, but that knockdown in the first round was his moment, just as that final 20 seconds of the fifth round was also another definitive one that stuck with us nearly 20 minutes later. This fight wasn't the story of a stray punch that found home or a back take that led to a shocking submission. No, it was a very consistently impressive performance that, while not entirely dominant, was still just maybe a tier below that level. It was comfortable. Strickland had a pretty straightforward time out there with Izzy over the course of 5 rounds. You could argue that his worst round, the second, was more of an adrenaline dump than anything else. Israel did well to rebound from that tough moment in the first, but Strickland's activity was very low. It wasn't a fight of a lucky moment or a lucky punch or submission. It was an actual shock to see one of the so-called easiest matchups in Adesanya's entire title reign turn out to be one of the worst stylistic opponents imaginable. Even within the Adesanya canon, it wasn't that single moment of greatness in the first Pereira fight, or a razor-thin 5-rounder at 205 pounds versus Jan Blachowicz. As far as upsets go, it wasn't the instant gut punch that Serra GSP or Bisping Rockhold was, which puts it more so in the realm of drawn-out performances like Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey, Dillashaw versus Barao, or Pena versus Nunes. These were fights where the expected victor lost against an opponent who showed up and largely dominated them over the course of the fight's runtime. But even then, looking at them one by one makes what Strickland managed to do that bit more shocking. We were all dragged deep into Rousey mania, but in reality, if Holly Holm, the multiple-time boxing world champion, was ever going to have a route to victory, it was going to be in the stand-up. The surprise came when we realized just how bad Ronda Rousey's striking looked in there with a seasoned pro. Holm didn't drag Rousey to the mat and hit an armbar on her. No, she played away from Ronda's strengths while sticking to what she knew for the most part. Dillashaw Barao was a less extreme example, and to be honest, probably would have been my own pick for the most thoroughly surprising championship level upset I'd ever seen, start to finish. And it was definitely more dominant than Strickland against Adesanya. It was a coming of age performance for a guy in Dillashaw who hadn't truly shown us his levels yet. And I would say that it is the closest contender to what we saw from Sean Strickland. As far as Juliana Pena's victory over Amanda Nunes goes, I would say that yes, of course it was a very shocking win, but it did really look like an off night for Nunes at the time, because beyond a semi-decent jab and cardio, Pena didn't exactly show us this insane flourish of newfound mastery, and Nunes confirmed our suspicions pretty comprehensively when she very confidently battered Juliana in the rematch. What's truly shocking about Strickland's win over Adesanya was how he did it, and how, even on paper, he took one look at Izzy's billing as the greatest striker of his era in mixed martial arts and said, that's how I'm going to beat him. On a quick side note, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to let us know in the comments section below before leaving a like and subscribing so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. I don't recall seeing a single takedown attempt in that fight, although correct me if I'm wrong. Strickland stood there in front of Izzy and used pace, pressure, patience, and some truly excellent shot selection to get the job done. Adesanya looked pretty damn good in there. He looked fit, fast. He almost looked too comfortable in the face of what Strickland was bringing. Early on, his head movement was clean. Again, probably a bit overconfident. His hands and kicks looked very quick, and maybe, just maybe, the whole dog and Chinese thing over fight week maybe messed with his head a bit, but I don't know. It didn't look like he necessarily wanted to punish Strickland. No, I just think that his opponent opponent's odd style of fighting just proved a little too weird for him. There was a point in the middle portions of the fight where Strickland was holding Izzy to like 12 or 13% accuracy with his headshots. And look, you can go elsewhere and find deeper analysis on the fight and on exactly what Sean did so well. But here's what I'm trying to say. This was an upset in the most shocking of ways. I kept expecting Izzy to find home with a counter shot, even late, but as the fight started slipping away from him, Strickland's ability to roll with the punches and to land his own in pivotal moments, it just got easier for him. The risk seemed to die down. This was like watching a contender rise up and scoring takedown after takedown on GSP or John Jones. It's like if someone had their way with Demian Maia on the mat, without having amazing credentials in BJJ. Some people did pick Strickland coming in, but most people couldn't fully explain a route to victory for him. And even if they could articulate one, it wasn't outstriking the sport's greatest striker, and even knocking him down in the first round. Dana's response to the fight was classic Dana, as he kept the focus squarely on Izzy and tried to ram up interest in a big money rematch. But I think that most people see Adesanya's current run, 1 win and 2 losses in his last 3, as enough reason to force him into his first non-title fight in about 4 years. Strickland managed to pull off the most unlikely victory here, following a game plan, standing in front of Izzy, that most analysts would have called him crazy for even attempting, but he did it. And to say that it worked a treat would be a massive understatement. A shockingly good title-winning performance from your new middleweight king. But what did you think of this UFC middleweight title fight? And where does this sit in the pantheon of all-time great championship upsets? Well, do let us know in the comments section below before leaving a like and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss a single upload. Thank you for watching.